Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, good people of the algorithm. How are you doing? How are you doing? I hope you are well. I hope you're having a great Thursday. I hope that your week has been going the way that you want to and you're looking forward for the weekend. So today I started a little late. I apologize, guys. I was over there. Let me fix my camera just a little bit. I was over supporting my fellow content creator. Also, he is a co-host. Oh, it stopped. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Let me fix it. Let me fix it. All right. I think that should be better now. Hi, Joanne. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why it stopped. That was weird. All right, let's see if that worked. Are we back? Are we back? No, we're not back. We're not back. Okay. All right. Let me figure this out. But before, while I'm figuring this out, let's see. So sorry I started late. I was planning on starting at 2 o'clock, 2:30. But I was at another fellow's content creators channel. Shout out to Mr. Sharon Bracy, as well as my co-host. And eventually, when you get into very intriguing and heated conversations, you tend to lose time. So that's exactly what happened. But I did enjoy the commentary. Yes, we're back. I did enjoy the commentary today, even the ones who got on my nerves. It is what it is. That's a part of the game when you're on YouTube. So I'm not going to be able to do my 3 cases today. However, I am going to do a case and we're going to review it. And it has to do with shout out to Hunter. I don't know if he's going to stop by or not, but shout out to Hunter. He asked me to look up the Christopher Parocco case, and I did. And then I was able to find a really good detailed video that will give us a chance to look at the whole thing in totality, right? And I think the reason why he wanted me to look up or review this case is because I think in February he had put in is going to court that maybe his conviction might be overthrown. So they might have found some new evidence that maybe he possibly did not unalive his parents. So, well, I'll say father, but tried to unalive his parents. So if you don't know the case of Christopher Parocco, August 10, 2006, a 23-year-old man named Christopher Parocco was convicted of second-degree murder for the axe murder of his father, Peter Parocco. And then he was also charged with second-degree attempt murder after trying to brutally attack his mother in the same way. She was left with severe wounds and permanently disfigured. So that is the pretty much the nutshell of this guy. He is known as the axe killer of New York's Bethlehem, New York. And we're going to review this, and I think this would be interesting to talk about because there's a lot of other things that was said about him, saying that he was a college student, he was a privileged college student, and there was also record or evidence that he was, after he unalived his father, he was literally signing off on his father's name, using his father's signature to sign off for money and things of that sort. So there's another level of as into why would he attack his parents so brutally. A lot of people is saying that it was entitlement. We're going to find out. Okay. So just make sure you're hitting the like button for me. If we can get through this in a good amount of time, because I only have a couple of hours before I go to work, then I do have another case for you guys, but it's not going to be 3 cases like I normally do. That's all. So here we go. I hope y'all are hitting that like button for me. Share this out to anybody who are interested in these cases, who like a immersive type of chat where we can speak about things, and let's take it from there. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull this up. All right, and shout out to you, Young Riaz. Shout out to you, Miss Jalen, Joanne Jenkins. I appreciate you. Truly, truly appreciate you guys. And here we go.
15th, 2004, at Broccoli Drive in Bethlehem, New York. 52-year-old Peter Porco and his 54-year-old wife, Joan Porco, were sound asleep in their bedroom,
Hey, Lord, good to see
completely
you. Hope
unaware
you're
of
having a good
impending
day.
tragedy. When morning
Hey, Big
came, Peter
Draws,
was found
good to see
lifeless
you.
at the
Hope you're
bottom
having a
of the
good day.
staircase by his co-worker, Michael Hart, while Joan was in critical condition in their bedroom upstairs. Both had been attacked multiple times with an axe. The investigation into the attack took many unexpected turns, involving multiple suspects and even raising suspicions within the family itself. The community was captivated by the case, wondering who the killer could possibly be. However, the police had their own strategies in place. Who was responsible for the violent attack on Peter and Joan Porco? What were the motives behind the crime? And what evidence led the police to the eventual suspect? Today we'll take a look into the disturbing case of Peter Porco. Without further ado, let's get started. Bethlehem is a town located in a beautiful region of the United States.
That's great. Good
It
to
is
hear
known for
that.
its vibrant
Big Draws.
community and rich history. With its picturesque landscapes, rolling hills, and tranquil atmosphere, Bethlehem is a haven for outdoor enthusiasts. Its close proximity to major cities like Albany adds to its appeal, making it a desirable place to live and visit. But this beautiful town was witness to a violent crime on November 14, 2004. Peter Porco was born on August 22, 1952, in Norwalk, Connecticut. He grew up with his parents, Ralph and Jane Porco. In the 70s, during his time at the University of Albany studying law, Peter crossed paths with Joan Balzano, who was studying speech therapy and also worked in a local school. They fell in love and soon decided to tie the knot. They settled in Bethlehem, New York on Broccoli Drive. The pair had been married for 30 years by the early 2000s. In 2004, Peter, at 52 years old, worked as an appellate division court clerk,
Hey,
while
DB,
Joan
good
was
to
a
see
dedicated
you. I hope you're
children's
having a
speech
good
pathologist.
Thursday.
Both were active in their church, but
Hey,
Joan's
Lana,
devotion to
good to
her
see you. Hope
family
you're
was
having a good
unmatched.
Thursday.
Together they had raised two sons, Jonathan, 23 years old, and Christopher, 21 years old. They also had a dog, a golden retriever, who was also a member of the family. Jonathan was serving time in the U.S. Navy, stationed on a powerful nuclear submarine. Meanwhile, Christopher was pursuing his studies in biomedical engineering and economics at the University of Rochester, not too far from their family home. The Porco family appeared to be living a happy and successful life in their charming old house.
Yeah, I just want to say Rochester, University of Rochester is a really good school. My uncle went there and he got his bachelor's in special education in there from there. So I remember when I went to his graduation because I was so proud of him because he got his bachelor's in his older age, you know. So yeah, it's a great school if you ever get a chance to look at it. I love it. It's a beautiful school. Just a little tidbit. Let's go on.
However, one fateful November morning, everything changed. Little did anyone know, there was a mysterious secret lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. It was still dark in the early morning of Monday, November 15,
Thank
2004,
you.
when the alarm clock beside Peter Porco's bed began to ring. Peter woke up and reached over to turn off the alarm, so as not to disturb his sleeping wife, Joan, who was beside him. As he got out of bed, Peter felt a chill in the air, so he quickly put on a sweater before making his way down the hallway to the main bathroom. Peter stood at the vanity mirror where he looked at his reflection. He was all covered in blood. His face appeared different. Strangely, he didn't seem to be concerned or disturbed by it, as if he was not fully aware of his surroundings. Despite this, Peter continued.
So I want to just start there. Like, that's very disturbing, right? He doesn't even know that he'd been attacked in his sleep. And he woke up and he just started getting himself together like how he would normally get himself together, like it was a regular day. Like his mind did not even register that he has a wound and that he's leaking blood. That's crazy. But then again, the type of attack that he had, it probably, you know, it could have affect why he's having this like this relapse or this a low slowing to coming to terms that something happened to him. and while he was sleeping. I'm thinking that that's what happened, because that's just weird. Like, most of the time we could tell, or we could feel when blood is coming down out our ears, on our lips. We could tell when we have liquid in places where we normally don't have liquid is. We'll think that it's saliva, and that's probably what he thought it was too. It was saliva, right? Or he was sweating in the middle of the night. Yeah. Let's go on.
With his usual morning routine. He picked up his toothbrush and began brushing his teeth, just as he did every day. Even as he continued, the presence of blood remained noticeable. After finishing, he left the brush in the sink and proceeded downstairs to the kitchen to start preparing for work. Along the way, he left traces of blood wherever he walked. Despite this strange occurrence, Peter went about his task, sorting through the mail, unloading the dishwasher, and getting food from the refrigerator, making his breakfast. While Peter continued his morning routine, he saw the presence of blood droplets that seemed to appear everywhere he went, but he wasn't bothered at all. He stepped outside to retrieve the daily newspaper from the front porch. Unfortunately, as he reached for it, the front door unexpectedly closed and locked behind him, leaving Peter locked out of his own home. Thankfully, he knew there was a spare key hidden under a flower pot nearby. As he retrieved the key and used it to re-enter the house, he saw larger droplets of blood on the porch steps. After leaving the key in the lock and allowing the door to close slightly, Peter took a few steps back towards the kitchen. However, his condition suddenly deteriorated, causing him to lose consciousness and collapse at the bottom of the staircase. Peter, known as a gentle-natured man, was a reliable worker at the courthouse and never missed a shift without notifying his colleagues. Therefore, when he didn't show up for work on November 15, 2004, without any explanation, his colleagues grew worried.
It started off as any other day until Peter Porco didn't show up for work, and people began to get worried because that wasn't like him.
They tried calling the Porco family home, but no one answered. Concerned, Peter's co-worker, Michael Hart, decided to visit Peter's house to check on him. Michael drove to the quiet and peaceful Broccoli Drive and parked in front of the two-story Porco residence. From the outside, everything seemed normal. Michael attempted to call Porco's home number twice but received no response. He then contacted his boss, who suggested that he go up and knock on the front door. As Michael approached the house and knocked, he quickly realized that something was not right. As Michael stood outside the
I think that's a great thing that he did have caring coworkers that realized that this is something that is not of this man's character. He's not a slacker. He doesn't come in late. He's always showing up on time. In fact, he probably is a workaholic, really, and they depend on him a lot in that department. So that's why that was alarming to them, because we know that today a lot of coworkers, if they're not trying to, stick you over, they don't really give a damn what's going on with you, right? They wouldn't go out their way to go do a home check or a wellness check on you, or they'll call like at least maybe like 2 or 3 times, and like that's about it. But for him to actually go to see, hey, is everything okay, that says a lot about that individual. And I'm not going to paint it as, oh, it's because they just want him to go to work. No, they was concerned. They were definitely concerned about this man.
The house. He could hear the Porco's golden retriever barking from inside the house. Curiosity got the better of him, and he cautiously looked inside. What he saw left him stunned, as if he had seen something incredibly frightening. In a panicked voice, Michael told his boss that it was a crime scene and urged him to call an ambulance. Without wasting a moment, he dialed 911 to report what he had discovered. When the police arrived at the scene, they encountered a horrifying sight that no one could have imagined.
He looks down and he sees on the cement steps some drops of blood.
Peter Porco's lifeless body lay at the bottom of the stairs, motionless on the tiled floor. He had suffered a devastating blow to his head, resulting in severe trauma. Shockingly, half his skull was missing, exposing his brain. His jaws had been removed, and his eyes were open and lifeless. Blood from the severe head injury had soaked his clothes and was splattered across the walls and some interior doors.
It was a scene of shocking horror.
Wow. So I didn't know that all that happened to him. Like his mouth is like his tooth, his mouth, his jaw is missing, half his head is missing, his skull is exposed. I didn't know that because when they was explaining how he was just walking around, I was thinking that maybe it could have been a deep but semi superficial wound, right? But they're saying, he was literally hacked away and he didn't even realize that. So even when he went to the bathroom to do his regular, putting on his clothes, washing up and stuff like that, he didn't realize that his jaw was gone. He didn't realize that something wasn't there. Like, that's bugging me out right now. That is really bugging me out right now. That is insane. Wow. Wow. Or did somebody come back and do the extra stuff? Let's go on.
Something that most people who saw it find it difficult to talk about.
As the police investigated the crime scene, red footprints stained with blood led through the area, forming a line. This discovery indicated that someone had walked through the blood, leaving behind a chilling trail. What made it even more horrifying was the realization that Peter, despite the severity of his injuries, had not died immediately. He had remained conscious after the attack, still aware of his surroundings and the familiar routine of his morning. Paramedic Kevin Robert was on duty, driving his ambulance nearby, when he received a distressing call about an unfolding situation on Broccoli Drive. He immediately rushed to the Porco's house and was directed to the first floor by Detective Chris Bowdish, who had arrived a few minutes earlier. Carefully maneuvering around Peter's lifeless body, Kevin and Detective Bowdish made their way upstairs to the main bedroom. Inside, they encountered a horrifying scene. Joan Porco was
Definitely
found
shock
lying
trauma.
flat on the bed that
Absolutely.
was covered in blood. The walls and bedside tables were also stained with blood splatter. Joan had cuts.
Oh my goodness, look at this. Hey honey, how you doing? T. Thomas with the wonderful support of $100. Thank you so much, sir. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything is well. And I definitely, as always, appreciate your financial support. I really, really do for the channel. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. You are the best. You're the best, dear. Thank you. That was so nice. I truly appreciate you, T. Thomas. Truly. Always supporting. Let's go on.
And wounds on her upper arms and hands, which suggested that she had tried to defend herself during the attack. However, her head had suffered the most severe injuries. One of her eyes was split in half, and the side of her jaw was hanging loose from her face. The sight was deeply disturbing.
Investigators could see her brain while they were trying to save her life. She was also hit with the axe along her arms.
An axe covered in blood was found at the foot of the bed, and the police believed it to be the murder weapon. Peter had been attacked with the same axe.
Oh my God. Why do something so gruesome? And you could obviously tell just by them saying that whoever did this, we all know who did it, right? It's the son. But if you didn't know who did it, you can obviously tell that the same person who did it to the father, did it to the mom. They have the same type of way how they swing the axe, and they were aiming in the same way to destroy this person or disfigure their face, right? Because it seemed like they weren't trying to hit any parts of the body. They wasn't trying to I would say like take a limb off or anything like that. They weren't doing that. They were specifically going straight to the head and disfiguring the jaw. Like, that's what I get from it. That's just wicked stuff. Wicked stuff. And I truly appreciate you, T. Thomas. I really do. I appreciate someone like you who definitely support the way that you do and how you show up. Thank you so much, sir. And I hope everything's going well with you. Let's go on.
Sustaining 16 blows to his head, which was 13 more than his wife. This suggested that Peter was the intended target. Shockingly, Joan Porco, despite her injuries, was still alive and conscious. Even though she couldn't speak, he found a way to communicate with Detective Bowdish through nods and hand gestures.
I said to her, "Can you hear me?" And she shook her head visibly up and down in the yes notion that she could.
The officer asked her if she knew who attacked her.
Sensing that Joan's condition might worsen and she could pass away any time, Bowdish began questioning Joan to gather crucial information. In order to determine if the perpetrator was a family member or someone else, Bowdish asked if a family member was responsible for the attack, and Joan nodded in agreement. Having already spoken to Michael, Peter's co-worker, Bowdish knew that Porcos had 2 sons. When he specifically mentioned Jonathan, Joan indicated that he was not involved. However, Bowdish then asked about her younger son, Christopher Porco.
I asked her, "Did Christopher do this to you?" And she clearly, again, nodded her head up and down, yes.
Joan nodded to confirm his involvement. Detective Bowdish double-checked the question, and Joan's response remained the same.
Just think, because if the mom did not stay alive, she would not have been able to, they probably would have had a harder time finding out who actually did this to the father and her. But the simple fact that she was alive to confirm that it was her own child, man, God bless that woman, man. It was definitely not your time, and God made sure that somebody needed to find out that you're, who did this. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that's unbelievable. That's just really, really sad. And like, just think about it from a psychological standpoint. How this woman feel that the child that she birthed and raised and did the best that she could, put them in a beautiful county in New York, one of the best, right? It is one of the best. And then help them go to school so they can have a very good, future. You did all this, and then to have one of your children, one of your blood, the one that you raised, do that to you and your husband. You got to think about the trauma that she's going through outside of what she's going through physically, right? Because she's in pain for the rest of her life. As long as she lives, she's disfigured, right? As long as she lives, she does not look the same ever again. And she probably have to be on certain type of medications and things of that sort. And you can already tell they're of a certain age, Now just think about the mental and emotional situation with that. That's something that you have to live with, like something that you have to stomach, and you don't even understand if you don't know, right? Because we don't really know the dynamics of their family, right? But just the outside looking in, you don't know what you did to make your own flesh and blood loathe you that much. That's a different type of pain. Different type of pain. I would never want to experience that. Absolutely not. Let's go on.
The information provided by Joan was significant, leading the police to focus their investigation on their first suspect, Christopher. Joan was swiftly taken to the hospital for a lengthy surgery, and Peter's body was sent for a thorough autopsy. Meanwhile, the police continued to examine the entire crime scene. Initially, the police considered the possibility of robbery as a motive for the crime. However, they found that nothing had been stolen from the house, except for some drawers that were removed, but nothing had been taken from them. In the dining room, Joan's purse and its contents were found untouched. Detective Bowdish believed that this indicated that the involvement of someone from within the Porco family or someone with access to the house. There was no evidence to support this theory. Upon examining the entire crime scene, the police did not find any fingerprints besides those of Peter and Joan. Amongst all the confusion, a question that puzzled everyone was how.
Yeah, that was just for them to signal out that it wasn't no random robbery, right? And that's just to remove that from this situation, a robbery that went bad. That's what they're just trying to do. Because if you really wanted to steal something, there was so many things that was in their house that could have been stolen, their purse, their wallets, their cell phones, all that stuff. And if all of that is there, then this attack was personal. So that's why Christopher became initially the primary suspect to question, right? Especially when they had asked, I guess, the co-worker or the neighbor about the other son, and he's not here. He's serving, he's serving his country. He's doing other things. He's nowhere near to be found, about the situation. So, but that's what they do. That's what they do. Not to say that, we've seen people who try to play it off as if it was a break-in or a robbery, and most of the time it doesn't even turn out that way, because all the things that they should have stolen still be there untouched. Let's go on.
Peter was able to continue with his morning routine after sustaining 16 axe hits. The answer to this question came with the results of Peter's autopsy. The autopsy reports showed that Peter's brain had suffered extensive damage in the attack. The upper part of his brain, called the neurocortex, responsible for higher functions like thinking, language, and reasoning, was severely affected. However, the lower part of his brain, known as the paleocortex, which controls primal instincts and habitual behaviors, remained intact. This explains how Peter was able to get up and perform his morning routines, even though he was gravely injured and almost half dead. His basic instincts and ingrained habits allowed him to carry out familiar tasks without conscious thought. The news of Peter and Joan Porco's murder quickly spread, capturing the attention of many. A reporter from the Times-Union contacted Christopher, who was in Rochester, New York at the time, and informed him about the attack on his parents. Christopher was taken aback and confused, as it was the first he had heard of the incident. He asked the reporter for more information, but she couldn't provide any details and promised to call him back. Christopher anxiously awaited for the phone to ring in his dorm room, but it remained silent. Finally, he gathered himself and decided to reach out to the local police near his parents' home to find out what had truly happened.
Hi, my name is Chris Porco. I was just called by the Times-Union saying that my parents were found dead this afternoon. I was wondering if you had any information on me.
Hey, Chris, whereabouts are you?
I'm at school.
So the reason why they told him that both of the parents are dead, or they let the news reporter go on to say both of the parents are dead, because they wanted to see how Christopher was going to react. They already spoke with the mom, who was able to tell them that Christopher was the one who did it. So it would be better for her protection, right, and to catch him and lying, to say that they're both dead, because that's what he assumed was going to happen with his mom as well. I just wanted to point that out.
School in Rochester, New York.
Okay, you're in Rochester?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a phone number there, Chris?
Yeah, I sure do. 585-274.
Okay, are you in a dorm there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you have a dorm name or?
It's called Monroe.
Okay. Is there a room number there? Okay. And you're hearing from the Times-Union?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they called me and
Thank
said
you so
my
much.
parents were found.
Yes, and prayers and families, prayers to Lee's family and their friends.
Didn't say how or anything.
Okay. I'm going to try and find you somebody you can talk to. I'm not quite sure who's in the office, but let me try and find you somebody who may have some more information for you.
Thank you very
just
much.
hang on the line for me, okay?
Thank you.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay, one of my detectives is out on the road right now, Detective Rudolph. We're going to have him call you back momentarily, okay?
Thank you very much.
Let me just confirm your phone number, 585?
Yes.
274?
Yes. That's correct.
Okay, you'll be expecting a call from Detective Rudolph. He's going to give you a call right back, okay?
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
After some time, Detective Rudolph called Christopher back and delivered the heartbreaking news that his father had been killed and his mother was in the hospital. Christopher was already preparing to come back to see his parents when he received the call. However, due to some reception issues, the call got disconnected, and Detective Rudolph asked Christopher to come to the police station to continue the conversation.
Hi, I'm calling back, Detective, I don't remember his name. I was on the phone with him a minute ago. He told me to call you back.
Okay, your name?
Chris Porco.
Hold on 1 second.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's better. I don't have the static anymore. Okay, so now who's bringing you down?
My Uncle John, is my mother's brother.
What's his last name?
Balzano. Balzano.
Okay. Is it just the two of you that are going to be coming down?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Now, as far as, when was the last time you said you came down and saw your parents?
About 3 weeks ago. It was on the weekend. I can give you a date. I have to figure it out. I'm not really sure.
Okay, but about 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Okay, and the email, what's going on with your email? You said you emailed him today, but you didn't get a response?
Yeah, I emailed him this afternoon. My dad at work.
Okay.
About college loan stuff.
About what?
College loan stuff.
About college loans?
Okay, so I think that's weird too. And shout out to Big Draws for pointing that out. You are just told that both of your parents are not here anymore. You don't have no emotion. You're very monotone. And you said that the last time you saw them was 3 weeks ago, and you decided to email, not call your father, but you tried to email your father at work to talk about college loans. Not, hey, how are you? How are mom doing? No, we need to talk about college loans. And why didn't you just call your father? Why you didn't call your mother? Why you didn't, like, you're in the era of cell phones. Why just send an email? That says a lot. It says a lot. Let's go on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me just, so you will be here probably, you're going to go right to Albany Med?
I don't know. I don't even know where my mom is, but.
Yeah, she is at Albany Med.
Okay. Do you know her condition?
No, because I haven't talked to her. Let me give you my pager number.
Okay.
Because when you get there, I'll come and see if there's anything I can do for you.
Okay.
422?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you're going to have a cell phone, right? Or your uncle's cell phone?
Yeah.
All right, let me give you my cell phone also, just in case.
Okay.
Oh, it is 788?
Mm-hmm. 788.
Right.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Christopher asked
And just to also point out, he didn't ask the detectives what happened, right? Why are they unalive? But he made it his business to ask what is the conditions of his mom, since they said that she's at the hospital. So he was more concerned whether or not if his mom was pretty much alert and if she would be able to tell anything. That's wicked. Some wicked stuff, man.
asked about his mother's condition, but there was absolutely no concern in his voice. Normally, a child would panic upon hearing something like this, but Christopher didn't seem concerned. His uncle John Balzano picked him up from campus and drove him to Bethlehem, which was a nearly 4-hour journey. Paramedics tried their best to save Joan Porco, but they struggled to place an oxygen mask over her face due to her injuries. When Christopher arrived at the hospital, Joan was undergoing surgery. He was greeted with hugs from friends and relatives who had gathered in the waiting room. Shockingly, a family friend informed Christopher that he was a suspect in the attack. Christopher couldn't believe that anyone would think he could harm his own parents. He was then approached by Detective Bowdish, who wanted to talk to him, and he agreed to go to the police station for questioning. During the interrogation, Christopher remained polite and cooperative. He told the police that he had been periodically visiting his parents, but hadn't stayed with them for 3 weeks. He strongly denied any involvement in the attack and provided an alibi for the night of the incident.
Your mother's communicating. She's saying you were there at the house. You don't know why she would say that. She knows what happened. I hope she does. I was not there.
Christopher explained that he went out to dinner with a friend in Rochester at 9:30 p.m. and returned to his on-campus dormitory afterward. He spent the evening exchanging online messages with his girlfriend, Sarah Fisher, and watching a movie in the dormitory common room until he fell asleep on the sofa. Christopher willingly allowed the police to take his fingerprints and blood for testing. He even lifted his shirt to let them check for any superficial injuries that might indicate his involvement in the attack. He provided his clothing for analysis, and his yellow Jeep was also examined, but investigators found no evidence linking him to the crime. Also, no traces of blood or fingerprints belonging to anyone other than Peter and Joan were found at the crime scene. Strangely, the murder weapon, the axe, did not have any fingerprints on it. Investigators could not find any evidence that connected Christopher to the attack. After being questioned for 6 hours, Christopher was allowed to leave the police station, as there was no solid evidence against him. He went back to the hospital to see his mother, Joan, who had undergone a 12-hour surgery and was in a medically induced coma. Miraculously, 3 weeks later, Joan woke up from the coma.
Everybody was very surprised. It was a miracle. She obviously had a strong will to live, and the doctors just did an amazing job.
Joan had
Hey,
suffered severe
TMQC,
injuries in the
how are
attack,
you? I hope you're having a
including
good
the loss of her
Thursday.
left eye, a portion of her skull being removed, and permanent scarring on her face. Her voice was also affected, and she could only speak in a quiet whisper. Against all odds, Joan miraculously managed to survive, despite the severity of her injuries. However, a significant issue arose, as Joan had no memory of the night of the attack. She could recall her activities leading up to that day, such as working in the yard and going to church, but had no recollection of the night of November 15, 2004. It seemed as though fate was protecting the identity of the attacker. Most importantly, Joan couldn't remember identifying Christopher as her attacker, and denied ever doing so. In her heart, she believed Christopher to be innocent. Once Joan unequivocally stated that Christopher had no involvement in the attack, the police were compelled to stop looking at him as a suspect. With Joan's denial and support for her son's innocence, the investigators had no choice but to eliminate Christopher as a suspect in Peter and Joan's murder.
I am absolutely positive that my son was in no way involved in this heinous crime. I implore the district attorney's office to leave my son alone and to search for Peter's real killer.
This led police to redirect their attention towards other evidence and potential suspects in their quest to solve the case.
Hey, Dallas.
The
Thank
police
you.
discovered that Peter Porco had received a serious threat from a man named Patrick DeLucia, who had lost custody of his children before the New York State Supreme Court, where Peter had worked. Peter took the threat seriously and decided to protect himself by keeping a handgun next to his bed. However, as time passed without any further incidents, Peter felt less concerned and eventually stored the gun away in a closet, thinking that the threat had passed.
The man told him he was going to get a gun and he was going to come and kill the judge and Peter Porco.
The police strongly believed that Patrick, who had threatened Peter, was waiting for the perfect moment to carry out his revenge. On the night of November 15, 2004, they suspected that he attacked Peter and Joan to fulfill his vendetta. Without wasting any time, the police located and extensively questioned Patrick about his whereabouts during the attack. However, Patrick had a solid alibi that proved he was not involved. With no other evidence or reasons to connect him to the crime, the police ruled him out as a suspect. It was at this point that they received information about an anonymous letter, which could provide new leads in the investigation. An envelope containing a white powder was delivered to the headquarters of the Times-Union newspaper in Albany, a city north of Delmar. When a staff member opened it, a white powder spilled out from one of the corners. The staff quickly contacted the police about the suspicious package. Inside the envelope was a letter from someone confessing the murder of Peter Porco.
Peter Porco was not even a challenge. Once I got inside, I repeatedly hit him in the head and neck with a small axe I brought with me. I ignored all his pleading screams. Also, I beat Joan Porco, but unfortunately, she survived. If you ever want to find me, you might want to stop going after easy suspects. Show me some respect I deserve. Catch me if you can.
The letter was a significant lead in the investigation, but the police had doubts about its authenticity. They questioned why a killer would willingly come forward and advised the police not to focus on easy suspects. It seemed as though someone wanted to
Hey,
divert the
Sal, how you
attention of
doing
the
today, sir?
investigation
Hope all
towards
is
serial
well this
killers,
Thursday with you.
potentially hiding their own involvement. The police had to carefully consider the motives and
So yeah, mostly people who would send a letter and something like that is someone who's convinced that they got away with something, right? And that is pretty much on the spectrum of being a psychopath, right? Serial killer, those types, right? And obviously that the second lead that they had in reference to the guy who made threatening death threats to the judge and his father, that didn't plan out because eventually it stopped, and there was no other evidence to show that this guy was continuing on to attack or make any threats towards the judge or his father. It still doesn't line up as into there were no false, oh, not, I wouldn't, yeah, I would say there was no break and entry into their homes, right? So that's number one. I'm sure their homes have a alarm system. They haven't talked about that yet. There's so many things that haven't been added yet that I can also, pinpoint that as maybe it had to definitely be the son to do it. But I hope they do bring those things up, right? And then we have to talk about the time of day of when this happened. Did this happen at night, or did this happen like it towards the evening, afternoon? We do know that the father woke up and he was an autopilot. Excuse me, autopilot. Jesus Christ, autopilot, as I think it was Lana who said in the chat. So that's why he was just doing his regular routines, things that we build habits on. But yeah, I do truly hope that they do bring up something about the alarm system, why there wasn't a breaking and entering, things of that sort. Whoever it is, but we all know who it is. It's the son. But let's act like we don't know who it is, right? The axe that was left there that obviously was used to unalive the father and try to unalive the mom, it didn't have no fingerprints on it, which is weird, but I'm sure they got their blood on the axe, the actual axe, but not the handle, right? And then we have to also take into consideration that maybe his mom is scared for her life that her son will finish the job, and this is why she is no longer pursuit of saying, yes, it was my son that did it, right? She could be scared. We all seen her face, right? She could be traumatized by this whole situation. Most likely she is. And I think that she just didn't want, she didn't want to anger him anymore for him to come out and finish the job. And that's why she changed her mind about it. I don't necessarily mean that she went through such a mental trauma that she had to, also that could be a possibility too, if you take it from a psychological approach. The amount of stress and trauma that the mom went through, and also the realization that it was her son, could have made her pretty much black it out of her psyche. You know what I'm saying? It was just too stressful that she had to black it out to continue to function or to even continue to live. So that is a possibility with that. So let's go on. Let's hear what they have to say.
Credibility of the letter while continuing their search for the truth. The police couldn't find out where the letter came from, even after conducting tests. They found that the white powder was harmless and couldn't uncover any fingerprints or clues that could lead them to the person behind it. A police lieutenant, when asked about the letter, shared that he didn't consider it a breakthrough in the case, but rather viewed it as another intriguing path they were exploring. However, the lieutenant did not disclose that the police had already concluded that the letter was a hoax. They focused their attention on solid suspects, who may have had a motive to kill Peter. During the investigation, it was discovered that Peter had an unexpected connections to the criminal underworld, as his uncle Frank Porco was a known mobster in New York. 30 years before the attack on Peter and Joan, Peter's uncle Frank had attended their wedding wearing expensive jewelry and carrying a gun. There were rumors that Frank had betrayed his fellow mobsters, and Peter knew about this and was about to take action against him. This led some to speculate that Peter and Joan could have been targeted as revenge. This theory gained traction because the attacker had used an axe, and Frank was known as Frankie the Fireman because he had killed 2 people with an axe in the past.
It was what they call a signature killing, that the mob would do. And it was a fireman's act because it was retaliation for Frankie the Fireman.
However, further investigation revealed that the axe used was not a fireman's axe, but a regular one from Peter's garage, which they had purchased from a local hardware store.
He was in prison because he wasn't a snitch. He had been made offers to cooperate with the authorities to avoid prison, and he didn't, so he ended up in prison.
Additionally, Frankie was already in prison for being a loan shark. There were also rumors that Frankie might cooperate with authorities and provide information in exchange for a reduced sentence. However, a background check on Frankie debunked this theory. Throughout the investigation, it was confirmed that Frankie was in federal prison during the attack on Peter. This meant that he couldn't have been the one responsible for the crime. With all the suspects eliminated, the police found themselves back at the beginning of their search. They were frustrated because they didn't have any strong evidence or leads that could point them towards the real killer. It was a challenging situation for the investigators as they had to regroup and find a new direction. The police started to wonder if they had overlooked any important details in the case. A nagging feeling crept into their minds. Were they missing something right in front of them? Could there be a vital clue hidden in the past of the Porco family? Determined to uncover any overlooked details, they decided to thoroughly investigate the history of the Porco family. They wanted to learn everything about their past, hoping to uncover any information that could provide valuable clues and help solve the mystery of the crime. They discovered that 2 years prior, in 2002, Peter had reported a burglary. It appeared that someone had broken into their house by breaking the window in the garage and stealing Peter's laptops. During their examination of the house on November 15, 2004, they found a window in the garage that was slightly open and had a cut screen. However, when they tried to open it further, they couldn't because Peter had installed bolts in the window frame to secure it. The window was only open about 4 inches, making it impossible for anyone to enter through it. This meant if the attacker had entered the house, it must have been through the front door. Surprisingly, the police discovered that it was Christopher who had stolen the laptops back in 2002. On November 28, 2002, while Christopher was at home for the Thanksgiving holiday, someone broke into the Porco home and stole 2 of Peter's laptops. Then on July 20,
So you got to ask your questions why. Why was people coming in stealing his laptops? Why would they do that? Like, what would be on his laptops that they need, right? Would it be particular documents for certain cases, certain evidence that he might have? I don't know, maybe his credit card information, signature, who knows? You know, we know how these laptops is. They have a lot of information in it nowadays. You know, you have those little store passwords and all that stuff like that that you put in your little file folder and you can hide it on your laptop. But this person, whoever it was, specifically came in looking for those laptops. They didn't come in and they didn't rob anything else in the house, but they wanted those laptops. So that would, that would raise a red flag for me, really. What was with those laptops. So now I think that's a good thing because that also can open up for the police officers to track the URL address of those laptops and to see when the last time someone logged into that laptop, did they make any purchases on that laptop? So that helps them because they were about to go cold with this case for a bit, right? All their initial leads went out the water because they don't have no actual physical evidence, So this with the laptop situation, they can kind of pick it up back again. So I'm glad that they was able to find out that information, and I hope they they lead with that. They lead with that information. Let's go on.
21st, 2003, another time when Christopher was staying at home, another burglary occurred. Joan's laptop and other electronics were stolen. This raised suspicions and led the police to develop a theory linking Christopher to the burglaries. The police discovered that Christopher had an eBay account. They found evidence that all the stolen items had been sold using that account. To confirm their suspicions, they traveled to San Diego and recovered Joan's stolen laptop from the person who had purchased it. It turned out that Christopher not only used the eBay account to sell the stolen items, but also to scam people. His scam involved selling an item on eBay, receiving payment, then posing as his older brother, Jonathan, and deceiving buyers by claiming that Christopher had passed away. This made it difficult, especially at that time, for the buyers to receive their purchased product or get a refund. This information became crucial in the investigation of the attack on Peter and Joan. Christopher was once again the focus of the police's attention. It was clear that Christopher was not as innocent as he claimed to be, and the detectives were determined to gather all the relevant information about him. They believed that there was more to the story than what initially appeared, and they wanted to reveal the complete truth behind the attack on Peter and Joan. The police learned that Christopher had been facing some academic challenges. While his parents had high hopes for his success at the University of Rochester, Christopher seemed more focused on having fun rather than studying. Christopher's poor grades led to his expulsion from the university and suspension after the fall of 2003. His parents tried to encourage him to follow in his brother Jonathan's footsteps and join the Reserve Officers Training Corps program, which would provide a scholarship for his Navy service. Christopher adamantly denied that his academic troubles were not his fault. He claimed to his parents that he was unjustly expelled because of a particular professor. However, the situation was odd because typically students receive warnings and offers of assistance before they are ultimately suspended for poor performance. It is common for universities to provide students with second chances to improve their grades and academic standing. Christopher relied on the hope of second chances. He decided to give it another shot by enrolling at Hudson Valley Community College in the spring of 2004, believing that success there would pave the way for his return to the University of Rochester. Unfortunately, history repeated itself, and Christopher failed once again. During his visit to
So already that's signs right there that he can't take accountability. He can't take accountability that he was messing up in school and that he wasn't taking it seriously. And he tried to blame it on a teacher, saying that the teacher was the reason why, you got kicked out the school. No, you got kicked out the school because of your poor performance. And then your family gave you the option of, maybe you want to take the route that your brother took. If you still really want to go back to school, you can get, the military to help you to pay for you to go back to school. And he didn't think that was a good idea for him. It seemed like he wanted the money to come directly from his parents to help continue to fund his education, or for him just to stay on campus because he's not really doing what he needs to do to actually succeed in school. He just wanted to stay on campus and he wanted the room and board. That says a lot. That definitely says a lot. And probably also where his frustration stemmed from, really. Let's go on.
To England as a part of his parents' study abroad program, he received an email from his mother, Joan, expressing her disappointment and scolding him for failing his classes at Hudson Valley Community College. "You just left and I can't believe my eyes. I look at your interim grade report. You know what they say, 3 strikes and you're out. Explain yourself." However, Christopher chose not to respond to the email, leaving his parents furious and deeply concerned about his well-being. While he enjoyed his time in England, he eventually settled down to write a response to his father, Peter. In his message, Christopher confidently blamed the college registrar for their incompetence and for messing things up. He admitted to making a mistake and receiving a low grade of C on a test, but he assured his father that he shouldn't worry because he would take care of everything once he got home. However, Christopher's actions contradicted his words when he returned from England, as he decided to lie to his parents once again. Christopher told his parents that he had successfully been readmitted to the University of Rochester. He lied, saying that the university had made a mistake by wrongly grading one of his finals, which had significantly impacted his overall grade. Fortunately, the error was discovered, and the university was in the process of rectifying the situation. As a result, Christopher would be able to return to his studies, and the university would cover the cost of his tuition for the semester to compensate for the troubles they had caused him. Peter and Joan were relieved after listening to this, and they believed that Christopher would be able to continue his studies at the University of Rochester as they had hoped. They prepared and sent him back to the university, expecting him to complete his semester there. However, the truth was quite different from what they believed. In reality, the university had never requested Christopher to return, nor did they offer to cover his tuition. So how did he manage to get back in? Christopher took matters into his own hands by forging transcripts from the community college. He created fake records that made it appear as though he had successfully completed several semesters with excellent grades, thus making him eligible to return to the University of Rochester. Unaware of the deception, the university accepted these fraudulent transcripts and allowed Christopher back into their institution. However, Christopher faced a challenging situation.
So, did he forge these transcripts from the Hudson Valley school that he was about to flunk out to, and he fled to England because he didn't want to deal with his parents or anyone about what he was doing? Because that's what it seems like. And I don't know if that's the case. Then I don't know. These administration and these schools better do a better job, because the last time I checked, when I went to school, you can't just give them transcripts willy-nilly. They don't take unofficial transcripts. The transcripts has to come sealed from the school, right? And it has to have the school seal on it to know that it's coming from the administration or the admission department of the school. So I don't know how that changed, like how that fly, but he was able to do it. But the problem is, if you are fucking around and you don't really, and the things that you're interested in is not the things that you said you're going to school with, you're going to still make the same mistakes. Just being able to be in the spot is not going to push you forward. You're going to have that discipline to do that, right? And that only can come from you. You could be placed anywhere, but if you don't have the discipline, what are you doing? You're not doing anything. So let's go on.
When it came to paying for his tuition, he couldn't approach his parents for money because he had already misled them by claiming that the university would cover his expenses. One might think he would take the responsible route and work hard at a part-time job, saving up enough money to pay for his tuition himself. But Christopher had other plans. He chose the path of deception once again. He approached his parents and asked them for their financial information and a co-signature to secure a loan of $2,000. Christopher took the financial information and co-signed loan documents to Citibank, but instead of borrowing just $2,000, he deceived his parents by forging Peter's signature and obtaining a loan of $31,000. With this money, he paid for his tuition as planned. However, Christopher's deceptive actions didn't end there. Shortly after, he once again forged his father's signature to finance the purchase of a flashy, bright yellow Jeep Wrangler, allowing him to indulge in the luxurious lifestyle he had always desired. Everything seemed to be going smoothly for Christopher, until Citibank contacted Peter to discuss repayment of the loans, alerting him to the fraudulent transactions. The call came as a shock to Peter, as he discovered the significant amount of money that had been taken out in his name, including the $16,000 loan Christopher supposedly co-signed for the Jeep Wrangler. He thought that Christopher wanted a $2,000 loan, as he had said, but all this additional information made him furious. Filled with anger and frustration, Peter repeatedly tried to reach out to Christopher, but his son avoided his calls and did not respond to him. Unable to contain his anger any longer, Peter decided to write an email to Christopher, delivering a strong warning and even threatening legal action, which left Christopher with a final chance to face the consequences of his actions. I want you to know that if you abuse my credit again, I will be forced to file forgery affidavits in order to disclaim liability, and that applies to the Citibank college loan. If you attempt to reactivate it or use my credit to obtain any other loans, I have to take legal actions against you. Christopher chose not to respond to the email.
So that right there gives you motive. If you really think about it, that right there gives you motive, because the father had already let him know, listen, you're going to have to deal with this on your own. If I go and I file this affidavit, they're going to be coming after you for forgery, and stealing money and all the stuff like that. And you're going to do time, and you're also going to get kicked out of school, right? Because they have to notify the college that the money that was used to pay your tuition was not, I didn't give you that money, right? I didn't give you that money, and it was done within forgery. So there's the motive right there. You see how he did everything in his powers to get back to University of Rochester. He really wanted to be there. He really wanted to be on that campus. So, having that, telling your family, or your father, I should say, having your father say, listen, if you do this again, I'm going to have to take legal actions against you, and you're going to not be in school either, so stop this. I mean, the way how this guy is acting, and then he took a $16,000 loan out to buy a Jeep so you can run around here and floss at University of Rochester like you balling out of control with a new $16,000 Jeep. Man, listen. I don't even think what his father said was unreasonable. It's not like he said, listen, I'm about to put you in jail. He had every right to put you in jail. You stole from him. You committed forgery. You know what I'm saying? He had every right to put you in jail, and he still didn't do that. He didn't want to destroy your life, and he didn't want to destroy the fact that you would lose out on, going to the school of University of Rochester, because that money was paid with money that didn't belong to you. There was no consent to that. I think he was very reasonable, his father, but you could tell by this guy's face, he's not a reasonable person. He's a dude who believes that I deserve to get what I want when I want, and I'll tell you whatever I need to do, or I'll do whatever I need to do to make that happen. He has shown that. So now to me, all the detectives have to find out where was the opportunity for him to do that to his parents, and where was the means. And obviously the means to me was he had access to the house, right? That was the means to me. Now the opportunity is like, is there a time that he visit the house that they haven't seen yet? Like he said that he didn't see them in 3 weeks, but we can tell now that that could possibly be a lot, right? Did he go showing up a day before prior? Did they even know that he was coming to visit, right? Like those things. I hope they're going to look into that. Is that ugly ass Jeep found a block away from his family's house a week before this happened? Like those are the things I would want to know, right? But let's see. Let's go on.
Email, and he stopped contacting his parents, adding to their growing concern and worry. They became increasingly troubled about his well-being. Just 7 days before the devastating attack on Peter and Joan reached out to Christopher in an email, expressing her genuine concern for his mental state. She lovingly urged him to contact them, emphasizing their unconditional love and their desire for his success and happiness in life. However, it was tragically ironic that Christopher returned home only after his father's death and the horrifying incident that unfolded. The investigation took a surprising turn when detectives discovered that Peter and Joan Porco had life insurance policies worth a staggering $1 million, and after their death, all the money of the policy would directly go to their sons. However, what raised suspicions further was Christopher's recent visit to a financial counselor just a month before the attack.
So there goes another motive. Life insurance policies of over $1 million to both him and his brother. That's definitely a motive. We have seen so many cases that has been a motive too, that people have been unaliving people for, is them life insurance policies. Hey, Corinne, how are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Hope you're having a great Sunday. But now they're about to say that he went to go see a financial advisor. Now, mind you, that doesn't necessarily mean, anything, because people can go see financial advisors within every 3 months, 6 months, pretty much a change in the stock market, whatever, right? People go to financial advisors for many reasons, plethora of reasons. but I'm looking forward to hear why did he go to the financial advisor? Does it have anything to do with the life insurance policy, or whether when he will be able to claim on it after his parents' death? I wonder if those are questions that is going to be answered. And I also wonder whether or not if the financial advisor was a character witness at his trial. But let's go on.
In October 2004, this raised many crucial questions. Where was Christopher expecting such a massive amount of money to come from? Could it be related to the insurance policies? Did money serve as a motive for Christopher to harm his own father? With these questions lingering, the police made their way to the University of Rochester, hoping to find the answers they were seeking. The police determined to find out where Christopher was on the night of the crime. They decided to question the students in his dorm, Monroe, to gather information. Surprisingly, every single one of them, including his fraternity brothers, stated that Christopher was not with them that night. They shared that they had a movie night in the lounge where almost everybody in the building gathered to watch the film, Shrek 2, until the early hours of the morning, around 3:30 a.m. It was a fun and memorable night for everyone except for Christopher, who was noticeably absent. The students even tried to call him, but he was nowhere to be found in his room or the entire dormitory. An unexpected turn in the investigation occurred when Christopher's friend, Jason, stepped forward with crucial information. He revealed that Christopher had told him he needed to meet his sick aunt, which is why he couldn't join the movie night. Christopher also mentioned parking his muddy Jeep behind the dorm. This revelation raised a pressing question. Who was this aunt that Christopher claimed to meet? Curiously, Christopher didn't have any aunts living near his dorm or in Bethlehem. It became evident that Christopher's alibi of sleeping on the couch
So obviously they figured out that Christopher lied, sleeping on the couch and all that stuff like that. All that was a lie. You wasn't even there on campus or in your dorm when you said that you were, right? And on top of that, you said that you had an aunt. You told them that you had an aunt that you had to go see, a sick aunt. All your family, majority of your family is not even from the state. They stated that your parents moved you guys to Bethlehem, New York when y'all was little. Only y'all immediate family, not the rest of your rest of your family. So, yeah, this is interesting. I think this is the reason why, he's doing the time that he's doing now. Let's go on.
the entire night was a complete lie. He was intentionally trying to mislead the police and divert their investigation. The burning question remained: where did Christopher actually go on that fateful night? The police reviewed surveillance footage from the campus. To their surprise, 4 cameras captured a yellow Jeep Wrangler leaving the campus at 10:30 p.m. on the night of November 14, 2004, the exact time Christopher claimed to be asleep on the couch. The Jeep returned the following morning around 8:30 a.m., just hours after the attack on November 15, 2004. This raised pressing questions about where Christopher had been for such an extended period and where he had gone. The police decided to pursue their leads and headed to the toll booths between Albany and Rochester. If Christopher had passed through these toll booths, it would strongly indicate that he had indeed visited the Porco home that fateful night. Their primary focus was the first toll booth encountered when leaving from Rochester.
I don't believe that those lanes are surveilled with video cameras.
The investigation took an intriguing turn as the police questioned the toll booth operators. John Fallon, a toll collector at the first toll booth, vividly remembered handing a toll ticket to a young man driving a yellow Jeep Wrangler with impressive tires at 10:45 p.m. on November 14, 2004. As a passionate fan of Jeeps, John couldn't help but admire the vehicle. The detectives then proceeded to the second targeted toll booth on the way to Albany. There, Karen Russell, a toll collector located 9 miles from the Porco's home and 228 miles from Christopher's dorm, recalled a young man with brown hair zooming into her lane at exit 24 in Albany around 1:51 a.m. Astonishingly, at 5:15 a.m., she spotted the same yellow Jeep making its way back towards Rochester as it passed her toll booth. But there was also one other person who had seen the yellow Jeep. In the early hours of November 15, 2004, at 4 a.m., as darkness enveloped the neighborhood, Marshall Goki, a local resident, prepared to leave for work. As he turned on the car's headlights, the bright beams illuminated his neighbor's property, revealing a striking sight: a yellow Jeep Wrangler parked in the driveway. This sighting of the Jeep in Porco's driveway at the time of the attack proved to be a crucial piece of evidence for the detectives. Remarkably, the timing of the Jeep's departure from the campus, its passage through the toll booth, and its presence at the Porco's home aligned perfectly with the timeline of the attack. The pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together, pointing towards a shocking revelation.
Just a heads up, don't do no crimes, right? But definitely do not do any crime when you have vehicles that stand out, that are somewhat unique, right? Like you're just like a sore freaking thumb, right? Like I don't even understand why you even want to do that. Like, you making a big statement by having a big yellow ass fucking Jeep, and that is what people are going to remember. And shout out to the toll the people that used to work in the toll booths. I miss those people, because we don't have them anymore up here in New York. Everything is all tollless and cashless and all that stuff like that. But those people were sitting there for hours. So the things that be happening when you going through those tolls and stuff like that, those people used to remember a lot of stuff. They did. They will remember faces. They remember license plates. They remember certain vehicles coming through. They remember a lot of stuff. They're sitting for hours in a booth, and all they can do is just pick up little details about what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you make time go by. So, shout out to them. I wish they still was working. That was actually a very good job, a very good, decent job, something to be proud of, Let's go on.
Based on the evidence and eyewitness testimonies, the police constructed a timeline of the attack and how it was carried out. According to their investigation, Christopher departed the campus in his yellow Jeep around 10:30 p.m. on the fateful night of November 14, 2004. He smoothly passed through the first toll booth, leaving Rochester at approximately 10:45 p.m. and entered Albany around 1:51 a.m. Upon arriving at the Porco's residence, he discreetly accessed the house using a spare key, cleverly hidden beneath a pot near the front door, and after opening the door, he carefully returned it to its hiding spot afterward. Inside, his first task was to deactivate the burglar alarm using the master code, which only a family member would possess. During the meticulous examination of the crime scene,
thank you. I'm so glad that they brung that up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That alarm system. Like I said, I was hoping that they was going to talk about that, because that's another reason why I truly believe that it was him. Because if the alarm system doesn't go off, and in Bethlehem and New York, we got alarm systems in our houses. It's just what it is, right? It's the state. If the alarm system didn't go off, there wasn't no breaking and entering. You know what I'm saying? You didn't see that the door was broken down. You didn't see that the window was broken or a rock was thrown in and someone came through the door. Like, if you don't have those type of signs, personally, it's going to look like someone has had access to that house before or know where the things are. So it would not alarm anybody who has access to the home, right? So it makes perfect sense. The guy was smart. He used the key, the hidden key, just in case if the mom or the dad would lose their key, they had a hidden key under the bottom, or they left it for their children. And what did? He used it and put it right back to come into the house unannounced. He turned off the alarm system, so it wouldn't trigger in the middle of the night, because they have it on when they're sleeping. And he did the egregious thing that he did. Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
Scene on the day of the attack, investigators had made a chilling discovery. The burglar alarm had been forcefully smashed, but curiously, it had already been deactivated around 2:14 a.m. The time of deactivation was stored in a box in the basement, a detail that Christopher likely wasn't aware of. After deactivating the alarm, he proceeded to the garage where he obtained an axe, the murder weapon. With the axe in hand, he quietly made his way upstairs to Peter and Joan's room. In a horrifying act, he launched a violent attack on Peter, striking him 16 times with the axe. The disturbing sound of the attack awakened Joan, who was startled and horrified as she witnessed Christopher's horrifying attack on her husband. Despite Joan's attempt to save herself, Christopher was determined to leave no evidence or witness behind. He viciously attacked Joan 3 times with the axe, targeting her head, believing that she would eventually succumb to her injuries by morning. He then went downstairs and deliberately smashed the burglar alarm and cracked the garage window to create the illusion that someone had broken into the house through the window, making it appear like a burglary gone wrong. However, Christopher was unaware that Peter had already secured the windows with bolts, making it impossible for anyone to enter. After meticulously cleaning himself and removing all traces of blood and fingerprints.
And now, since we know why he bolted the windows, because back a couple of years ago, Christopher was in there, was coming into their house, stealing their laptops and stuff. So that's why the windows was bolted down. But Christopher didn't know that. He didn't know after those 2 incidents that the father bolted from the inside. He didn't know. This is crazy. This is getting really sad. Very sad as we continue to go on.
Fingerprints from the house, Christopher severed the phone line at 4:54 a.m., ensuring there would be no means of communication. In this way, he sought to eliminate any possible witnesses or evidence that could link him to the crime. With his plan carefully executed, Christopher swiftly departed from the Porco's house, and at 5:12 a.m., he re-entered the New York State Thruway, heading back towards Rochester. As the morning progressed at around 8:30 a.m., the cameras on the roof of a medical center captured a yellow Jeep Wrangler traveling in the direction of the campus. The timeline of events aligned perfectly, adding to the mounting evidence against Christopher as the prime suspect in the crime. But the investigators encountered a twofold challenge. Firstly, determining whether the yellow Jeep truly belonged to Christopher or not. Seeking assistance, they turned to video analysis James Kennedy, a master of unraveling mysteries captured on surveillance cameras. With his expertise, he processed the security camera footage using advanced computer filters.
So it's not like our filtering software all of a sudden makes this stuff appear. What it does, it provides us with, in some cases subtle, in some cases dramatic, clarifications.
As James Kennedy carefully examined the footage, he made intriguing discoveries about the yellow Jeep. He noticed clear indications, like mud carefully stuck to the door on the passenger side, a unique parking sticker with a horn design on the window, and a noticeable political sticker on the back tire cover.
We were able to conclude that it was in fact the suspect's Jeep.
Comparing these findings to the photographs of Christopher's Jeep, taken by the police on the day of the attack, it became clear that all the pieces fit together seamlessly. Another challenge arose for the investigators, as they lacked concrete evidence that it was Christopher who drove the yellow Jeep that night. In such a crucial case, every detail had to be scrutinized. They closely examined the photos of Christopher's Jeep and discovered a significant clue, an E-ZPass-like tag stuck on the floor.
The yellow Jeep was searched for blood and or bloody clothing, any type of blood transfer whatsoever, which would be indicative of the attack. There was no blood located in the vehicle whatsoever.
The investigators thought there could be a possibility that Christopher may have intentionally paid the highway tolls in cash, cleverly avoiding leaving any trace or means to track his movements.
They tell me if you take it off the windshield and you get it down on the floor or put it away somewhere, it won't register.
Basically, on toll roads, such as the Thruway, there are multiple exits, and the amount you need to pay depends on how far you travel. When you enter the toll road, the attendant gives you a ticket. When you reach your exit, you insert the ticket into a slot, and it shows you the amount you have to pay based on the distance you traveled. Around the time when Christopher crossed the toll booth, only about 12 cars passed through. The investigators collected all 12 toll tickets and sent them to the forensic lab for testing and analysis.
Those 12 toll tickets to the forensic lab for testing.
What we were looking for were any kind of skin cells. If your hands are sweaty and you touch a toll ticket, there's a possibility that DNA sources such as epithelial cells may be transferred onto these toll tickets.
However, the investigators found no fingerprints or DNA evidence on the toll tickets, which left them at a dead end. It seemed likely that they wouldn't be able to prove.
I mean, he could have been wearing gloves. That's why. He could have been wearing gloves. But at least they try to be thorough as possible. That much. And I understand what they mean. Like, unless you can have it confirmed that's him driving his Jeep, they could not confirm that. That could have been somebody else driving his Jeep, right? We don't know if he let people drive his Jeep, but that is a possibility. So, this is just getting interesting.
That Christopher was the one who drove the Jeep to Porco's home and carried out the attack.
When that DNA came in, that was the top of the mountain. It was what I considered a mountain of circumstantial evidence.
You would expect to see that sequence in 0.04% of the population.
But with the rest of the evidence they had against Christopher, the investigators were confident that he was the individual who had passed through the toll booth and who arrived at Porco's home on the night of the murder to carry out the attack. With these pieces of evidence, the investigators were certain of Christopher's involvement in the crime. Almost a whole year after the attack, on November 4th, 2005, Christopher was charged with the murder of his father and attempted murder of his mother, based on the gathered information. However, what happened next wasn't out of character. Christopher admitted that the yellow Jeep seen in the surveillance video was indeed his, but he claimed that he was only moving it to park off campus. According to him, when he returned to the dorm lounge, his frat brothers had already gone to sleep. Christopher argued that the surveillance cameras on campus only showed him leaving the campus, not specifically going home or to the throughway. He questioned the logic of using a conspicuous yellow Jeep if he had malicious intentions. The surveillance video, according to Christopher, did not provide evidence of his destination. Van Sant, Christopher's attorney, told investigator McDermott that while the video confirmed his departure from campus, it did not reveal where he actually went. McDermott pointed out the crucial testimony of Marshall Goki, who saw Christopher's Jeep in the Porco's driveway at 4 a.m. McDermott firmly believed that it was indeed Christopher's vehicle. This indicated that Christopher was present at the Porco home during the time of the attack. When considering the combined evidence of Marshall Goki's testimony, the surveillance videos, the toll taker's records, and the knowledge required to deactivate the alarm using master codes, McDermott concluded that Marshall Goki's account perfectly aligned with the rest of the evidence, strengthening the case against Christopher. Finally, Joan Porco, the key witness, also revealed that she had no memory of the events from that night and did not recall nodding to indicate her son as the attacker. In a surprising move, Joan publicly declared her son's innocence, challenging the prosecution's entire case against him. In the trial, Jonathan Porco was also present, and he expressed his anger towards Christopher for taking away his father's life.
That's because the older brother ain't stupid, okay? The older brother is his sibling. He grew up with him. He knows that man's character probably better than the parents did. And this is why he's like, nah, nah, it was him. It was him. He definitely did it. So, I mean, I don't know if he takes the stand or anything like that, but it would be something powerful to get, to get him to speak about, like as a character witness to Christopher. That would have been a very powerful thing. I don't know if they're going to show that. I don't know if he actually did it, but he does know. He knows his brother. He knows his brother, and he knows what his brother is capable of. And I think that the father knew that, Christopher was the one who was stealing his laptops those years prior to that. And then with the the stunt with the, asking for $2,000 for school, but then actually taking out 31,000 and then buying a $16,000 Jeep. The father's like, listen, this is someone who doesn't want to work for what he has. This is someone who thinks that me and his mom supposed to continue to fund his life and to fund his education. So, that's something that you have to take into consideration for this guy's character. The way he was willing to mess up his father's credit and to steal his money. That should not go on unsaid. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not just something that is like, whoopsie. No. You know what I'm saying? That, and then on top of that, learning about the life insurance policies, how both of their life insurance policies totaled over $1 million, and that they were supposed to inherit that. You have to include all the proper details about everything that will lead to who will have more motive to do that. Because honestly, I don't even see any other motive or anyone else having this type of motive to unalive them than his own children, right? Especially Christopher. I don't see that. Even with that one situation with the guy threatening him and the judge, he never talked about axing him. He was talking about, when I see you or if I see the judge, I'm going to pew pew you. He didn't say anything about axe. Axing is personal. It's a personal situation, just like stabbing someone. It's very personal. That means you loathe that individual, right? You want to disfigure that person, right? Like those type of acts, people do it when they have a lot of hate in their heart for whoever that person is. So we have to take the consideration for that. We just can't just like shrug it up as like a regular thing. It's not. And I mean, like I said, with the mom, two things. It's her son, right? She don't want to see her son in jail. I don't think she wanted to see any of her children in jail. And then number two, she could be scared to death that he would finish the job. Let's go on.
The police claim that Joan identified her son as the killer by nodding. However, the defense team argues that the prosecution's case was weak because there was no forensic evidence connecting Chris to the crime. According to the defense, there was no bloody footprints or fingerprints that tied Chris to the scene, and no forensic evidence was found in his Jeep. According to Terry Kinlan, the defense attorney, the surveillance video was not a concern. He explained that Christopher parked his Jeep off campus and then wandered around until later in the morning around 3:30 a.m., when he returned to the dorm lounge and fell asleep. Kinlan stated that he knew why the alarm at the Porco's house was deactivated, using the master code. He claimed that Peter Porco had a habit of disabling the alarm to let the dog go out and sometimes even forgot to reactivate it. A month after being charged, Christopher was released on bail with the support of his family and friends, who strongly believed in his innocence. During this time, he stayed with Elaine Lafort, a veterinarian whom Christopher had worked with for a long time. Elaine considered Christopher like a son to her. 19 months after the savage attack that tragically took Peter's life and forever changed Joan's existence, on June 27, 2006, the trial commenced. It was heartbreaking to see that Joan entered the courtroom alongside the man accused of committing this violent crime, her own son, Christopher. The courtroom became a battleground as the prosecution and defense engaged in a 7-week-long struggle, presenting the bloody details of this circumstantial case. Over 80 witnesses testified, shedding light on the events surrounding the tragic incident. Paramedics Kevin Robert and Dennis Wood stated that they observed Joan Porco nodding when they asked her if Christopher was the one who attacked her. However, Joan's neurologist, Dr. Mary Dumbavi, informed the jurors that it was unlikely for Joan to fully comprehend the questions due to her severe injuries. The prosecution challenged Christopher's alibi by summoning 9 of his frat brothers as witnesses. Rossi, one of the investigators, testified that they brought in everyone who was present in the lounge that night, and all of them confirmed that Porco was not there. To determine if Christopher drove to Porco's home, the jurors heard testimonies from the 2 toll collectors, who recalled seeing a yellow Jeep similar to Christopher's on the night of the murder. Additionally, neighbor Marshall Goki shared his account of spotting Christopher's Jeep on the morning of the attack. On the other hand, a forensic pathologist reminded the jury that there was no trace of blood from the crime scene found on Christopher. However, the prosecutors provided explanations for this. They believed that Christopher probably did not get much blood on him during the crime. They also noted that Christopher had enough time inside the house to change his clothes. Moreover, they pointed out that Christopher worked in a veterinary hospital and has been trained to avoid contamination. Defense attorney Shanks strongly disagreed with the prosecution's claims. He argued that it went against common sense. If someone repeatedly strikes another person with an axe for 15 to 20 times, it was expected that blood would be present on the attacker. Shanks asserted that the lack of blood on Christopher was evidence that he did not commit the crime.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and the defense is right to take that, to take that route. But the prosecutor was right to bring up that he knows how to not get himself contaminated. Right? He could have had a whole get up. He could have had a whole suit on, gloves on, goggles that go over his glasses, everything. Right? He could have had a beanie on to protect his hair so it wouldn't fall into his hair follicles, and then all of that can be cleaned up. Right? All of that can be cleaned up anywhere else that was not exposed can be cleaned up. But the main things that you don't want to have any evidence on is your clothing, right? Because we saw a case where someone had a knitted sweater and they thought once they did the unaliving, I think that was her boyfriend or something like that, they was able to look into this woman's shoelace and it's weaved in there very little drops of her victim's blood, right? So he knows things like this. And obviously he has training in that. So that's why, you're not going to find those things. But it doesn't make any sense why he lied to them. Like, I would have pinpointed as a prosecutor, then why did you lie about you being, sleeping and staying in all day? Where did you travel to? Why don't you tell us, where was your location from? Why did you go back towards Albany? What was your reason for going there around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night? It would have been very simple if you said, I got a phone call, I had like a little side chick, little main squeeze that I wanted to see in the middle of the night. That would have been an alibi, but that wasn't your alibi. So the whole lying, and then I don't care what anybody say, you don't know the master code of the security system unless you're a part of the family, right? Or unless you work for that security alarm system and you have access to the master code, right? But then we do know that the father didn't have any beef with the alarm system company, right? So it would have been no reason why they're going in there in the middle of the night to unalive them. So those things I would definitely have brung up. Seriously. But let's see what else they have to say. No, he unalived his father and tried to unalive his mom with an axe. He is known as a axe killer. Shout out to you. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Latress, I think, but shout out to you and apologies if I said your name wrong.
When asked about his thoughts on trial, Christopher expressed optimism about the progress and the outcome regarding his guilt or innocence. Even though he decided not to testify, he wanted to convey a message to the jury. He urged them not to rush to conclusions and to carefully consider all the evidence. Christopher believed that when they examined the entire picture, they would see that things didn't make sense, and his innocence would become apparent. After a lengthy 7-week trial, both the prosecution and the defense anticipated a prolonged deliberation by the jury. However, to their surprise, the jury reached a unanimous verdict in less than 6 hours on August 10, 2006. Christopher was found guilty of all charges. On December 12, 2006, Judge Jeffrey Berry sentenced Porco to 50 years to life on each count, totaling a minimum of 50 years in prison. Christopher would be eligible for parole in 2052. When the verdict was announced, Christopher remained emotionless. When asked about it, he explained that he was advised by his attorney not to show much emotion, regardless of the outcome. Joan unfortunately arrived too late to hear the verdict regarding her son's fate. When Christopher and his attorney sat down, his first request to the attorney was for her to inform his mother about the verdict. Christopher was visibly upset. However, by the time they returned to the hotel, someone had already informed his mother. The attorney met with Joan, who was overwhelmed with devastation upon hearing the news. According to the prosecutor David Rossi, Christopher believed he was cleverer than everyone else when he committed the crime. However, he was mistaken in thinking it was a flawless plan. The guilty verdict, although adding more sorrow to Joan Porco's life, ensured that justice was served. After 16 long years, an interview was finally arranged with Christopher Porco to discuss the case and verdict. It was a challenging process to gain access to the prison and conduct the interview, but finally in early 2023, the opportunity arose. The interviewer had 2 hours to ask Christopher Porco various questions, but the most pressing one was the first. Did he commit the heinous crime he was just convicted of? During the interview, Christopher Porco shared his experience of the past 16 years.
I'll ask you the obvious question again, Chris. Did you do this crime?
I didn't. I had nothing to do with this. I've said that from day one, and it's the truth.
Reflecting on his life behind bars and offering his thoughts on the case that had consumed his existence.
Weeks go by very quickly, and so it's easy for years to kind of go by too. You know, when you think about what's happened in the past 16 years outside of here, you know, George Bush was president when I got here, so.
Right.
Christopher's smile vanished as he discussed the trial, revealing his perspective on the moment he pleaded guilty. Christopher's new attorney, Danielle Muscatello from Barkett Epstein in New York City, was seeking the attention of another judge.
People of the state of New York against Christopher Porco, count 1, murder in the second degree. What's your verdict? Guilty.
I think we were overconfident, I would say, going in, and felt like there just wasn't enough evidence and can kind of rely on that. Having said that, a criminal trial is as much about narrative as it is about evidence, and you got to hand it to the prosecution in my case. They told a wonderful story. I don't blame the police for initially suspecting me. I don't blame them for prosecuting me, even though they knew there were real problems with the case.
She planned to file a 440 motion, a legal argument requesting the criminal court to reconsider the verdict from years ago and re-examine the Christopher Porco case thoroughly.
In order for Christopher to have done this, which we of course adamantly maintain that he did not, he would have had to complete these heinous acts in a very, very narrow time span. And what his attorneys failed to do is they failed to break that down. And when you break it down piece by piece, it doesn't fit. And it doesn't fit because it didn't happen.
One thing that was evident from talking to Christopher Porco in prison was that his mother remained his staunchest supporter. The final question posed to Christopher was whether, in the event of a new trial and the prosecution's desire to avoid further proceedings, he would be willing to plead guilty to the attack in exchange for being released with credit for time served.
Somebody, either in the DA's office or high up in the Bethlehem Police Department, realized that they didn't have a warrant for information that they believed was going to be critical.
Porco's lawyers will have to wait for several months to find out if their legal strategy was successful. In the meantime, Porco is currently serving his 17th year of a 50-year-to-life sentence.
It sounds like your mom is still very much in your corner, and
very much. She's the toughest person you'll ever meet. We speak every day. She has borne the brunt of this without a doubt. So we've gotten through this together, really. We're the support system for each other, but she's endured much more than I ever will.
Despite years behind bars, Christopher's guilt or innocence continues to be a subject of debate. What are your thoughts on this case? Was it Christopher who attacked Peter and Joan Porco, or someone else? We'd love to hear from you.
Now, I believe that he did it. I believe he's serving the exact time that he needed to be serving. I think he should have gotten more, but I mean, 50 years, I mean, that's a pretty long time, right? So this brings us now to present date. So I have an article for you guys in reference to this case, so we can look at it and to see what is actually about to play about right now.
Classroom setting where you read the textbook, you listen to a lecture, and you learn the material that way. We are more about adding that layer of experience, action, reflection, where the student.
All right, I had to cut that off. Sorry, guys. All right, so here we go. I don't know if y'all can look at it this much, but This is from 6 News, Albany. This was done on Friday, February 28th of 2025. It says Christopher Paracco's bid to overturn conviction in the hands of the Cincinnati prosecutor. It says Albany, nearly 20 years after the Albany County jury convicted Christopher Paracco, and 2 years after he filed a motion to overturn the conviction, his case is seeing new action. But a conflict of interest with the Albany County District Attorney's Office means the high-profile case won by prosecutors there is now being handled by the Schenectady County District Attorney's Office, okay? In his initial 2006 trial, Parocco was represented by Terry Kindlin and his legal partner wife, Laurie Shanks. Kindlin's son, Lee Kindlin, was elected Albany County District Attorney in November. All these ads on these doggone news places. This is why people don't even want to go to the news channels anymore. It said Christopher Horn, Executive Assistant District Attorney in Schenectady County, previously worked for the Albany DA's office and is now handling the Parocco case. The Albany County Judge, William Little, is still assigned. And he's serving a life sentence for the brutal axe murder of his father, Peter, in 2004, which left his mother maimed. While the attack happened in Delmar, Albany County, the trial was held in Orange County. Due to the intense media coverage beforehand, the defense feared bias in the local community. So it's pretty much more. They're just talking about what happened with him when he was a 20-year-old college student, talking about the injuries that his mother and his father sustained. So yeah, so this is what they're doing. He had put in a lot of several appeals over the years, but it didn't work. Yeah, so now he's eligible for parole in 2052, but they're looking to get it overturned. So I wanted to share that with you. So what do you guys think? What do you think, guys? Do you think that he did it? Holly said that she always thought that he did it. Hi, Holly. How are you? Karen said yes. Moon Girl, how are you, dear? I hope everything's well. She said, I think he did it. I do think he did it. Main things that stood out for me is the deactivation of the security alarm in the house, the master code. Only a family member would know it, right? And it's good that he had a system that actually kept track of when it was deactivated, like a log system, and that's where they was able to pull. It was deactivated before it was destroyed. Right? So that's number one. Number two, the history of him stealing from his father, stealing his father's laptops and stuff like that, and then selling them on eBay, lying and saying that he was his older brother, right? And that he passed away. That was crazy, right? Because if anything happened with that, your older brother would have took the charge. He would have been arrested because you told them that you was pretending to be his identity, right? Then the whole situation about what he did with the college tuition and buying the vehicle on his father's credit. Him talking about how his father reached out to him and he didn't have no response, but then he said that he went to go visit him for 3 weeks. The way he was acting on the phone when he heard about his father being unalive and his mother being at the hospital, he was very monotone. He didn't have no emotions whatsoever. And the first thing he asked was, what was the condition of his mother? Like, to me, that read that you want to know whether or not if she's able to talk, right? Those are things that really came out to me. And also with him lying about you was in your dorm and you was sleeping, you fell asleep in the dorm and all that stuff like that, and then having your roommate and your dorm mates confirm that you weren't even here. In fact, they was trying to get you to watch the movie with them, but you're traveling in the middle of the night. All of those things are the real reasons why I believe that he did it. That's that. Now, I mean, unfortunately, we're going to have to let the law of the land go. If he does get it overturned, tell you the truth, that's an L for the community. But most likely they will probably move out of New York anyway, or definitely Albany. They wouldn't stay. They wouldn't stay. They will move out. But that's still an L to community, L to society, really. And I would be fearful for his mom. His mom been his backing support this whole entire time. That doesn't mean that he ain't gonna finish the job, right? I'm just saying. So yeah, that was a very touchy case, and now we have new current evidence about what's going on with that case. So shout out to Hunter. I don't know if he's here, but shout out to you, Hunter, for thank you so much for telling me to review and research that case, because I had no idea about that case. I was still like going spiraling about the serial killer in Long Island that was been snatching up girls for like 20 years, and everybody in the whole community thought he was this great guy. To come to find out, he was the serial killer that they was looking for 20 plus years. So I'm still like over that, right? I'm still flabbergasted over that. So I'm definitely thankful for this. And if y'all have any other cases that y'all are interested in me reviewing, please just put the name of those cases in the chat. I will write them down. I have my little pen and my little notepad right here. I will write them down and I will go review, research them, and see if we have any videos available that we can look at them and share with each other. Okay. So I have about 20 more minutes. I have 20 more minutes that I could rock with you. So I am able to do another case for you guys. Just another case. Oh, I thank you, Moon Girl. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So I have one more case for us to review. Just make sure you're getting the like buttons up, share, comment. Truly appreciate it. It helps the channel. It helps me stay in the algorithm, okay? So the last case that I have for you guys today is a killer is caught red-handed by his wife's secret recordings. So we're going to take a look at that, okay? Here we go.
Wide open, is about to have his rights read to him. Apparently, he thinks that repetition will stop this already moving train.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against the court of law.
No, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything at all. I didn't do anything at all.
You could not afford a lawyer.
I didn't do anything. I had to read my rights. You had to read my rights.
You can
Why you
decide
read my
whether
rights?
any time to exercise these rights.
Why you read my rights? There's no point. I didn't do anything.
This is Evan Smith. Evan is what police call a frequent flyer due to his long history of run-ins with the law, most of which revolved around his violent behavior. He also had an extensive list of drug-related convictions, which he had already spent many years in prison for. In this footage, he is being arrested for driving while under the influence. Evan is a prime example of how intoxicated drivers tend to lash out at the police while being arrested, as you can see from these clips as well.
I can't see in handcuffs!
Don't you ever grab a cup like that again, bro? Give me that.
However, the things Evan says while being detained suggest that being arrested for a DUI is the least of his concerns.
Is she okay?
I told you that. I don't know. Chill out.
What do you mean you don't know? How do you not know? What do you mean? Yo, listen to me. I need to know if my girl's okay. I need to know she's okay.
Following his arrest, Evan was transported to the Falls Township Police Station, just 2 miles from where he was pulled over. At the station, police noticed that Evan's knuckles were bruised and that he had scratches on his face, neck, and chest. These injuries were consistent with defensive wounds, leaving police wondering what exactly happened to Evan. This arrest took place on July 2nd, 2021, just after 1 a.m. Hours earlier, on July 1st at 11:40 p.m., this call was received by dispatch.
What's the address? I'm sorry?
The call was dropped before the dispatcher could get any information, but they immediately called the number back, and Evan Smith picked up.
This is 911. We just received a call from this number. Is everything okay?
No, me and my girlfriend were drinking. We're doing drugs. Right now, she's unresponsive. I need help.
What's the
And
address?
New Falls End, room 29.
Evan frantically urged the dispatcher to send some help, talking over them while they attempted to guide him through CPR.
Come on, please.
Can you get next to her?
I'm right here next to her right now. Come on, please. Come here.
Okay.
Come.
Can you see if she's breathing?
She's not breathing. She's not breathing. She's not breathing. Come on, come. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Can you get by her side?
Yes, I'm by her side. Please, come.
He eventually calmed down enough to pay attention to the instructions given, finally performing chest compressions on his girlfriend.
Count out loud so I can hear you doing expressions. 1, 2,
1,
3,
2,
1,
3,
2,
4.
4.
In between counting, Evan continued to plead for assistance. His emotions were volatile, so it was crucial for dispatch to keep him focused on the task at hand.
1, 2, come on now, y'all.
Keep going.
Come on, y'all.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Come on, y'all. Come
Keep
on.
going, sir.
This isn't the first time that the New Falls Motel had been the center of a drug-related incident. In January of 2015, police confiscated a total of 26 bags from a dealer that was operating out of a room in the motel. He was later convicted of 2 felony charges related to this illegal business. On another occasion, 3 more people were charged and convicted for illegally selling similar items, which resulted in someone accidentally overdosing in one of the rooms. Basically, police knew what to expect when responding to this scene, or so they thought. When they arrived, they made their way up the stairs to the second floor of the motel. Upon entering room 29, they were met by Evan, who began running around the room, picking up random items, jumping on the bed, and screaming at the officers to save his girlfriend's life.
Keep going. Sir.
Please, I'm here. We're here.
All right.
The room was in a state of disaster, with food and personal items scattered everywhere and blood soaking the mattress. The unresponsive female was Evan's partner of over 18 years, 39-year-old Jamie Bagley. Jamie is a mother of 5 sons. She is known to be funny and outgoing, but also hardworking, taking any opportunity to help others. But the person that everyone knows and loves now had no vital signs, dying on the floor of room 29 at the messy New Falls Motel. She had scratches on her face and bruises on her body. Not only that, but there was blood coming out of her mouth, eyes, and nose. This set off red flags for the officers because it wasn't consistent with the many other drug-related emergencies that they had responded to in the
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Why does she have bruises on her nose and scratches on her face if it's an overdose? I have never heard of anybody overdosing to the point where they're like trying to claw their eyes and their face out. Like that usually doesn't happen unless they have something like it's like if they're hallucinating and a part of the hallucinating they had a whole bunch of ants or something all over them or in their face or something like that. But yeah, that's distinct marks of of fighting per se. So it would raise a red flag, definitely.
the past. Evan continued to be intrusive while the police took over performing CPR. He persistently asked if she was okay and gave no space for the officers to do their job.
Sorry?
Sure.
Sorry?
Sure.
You relax? You okay?
Hear me.
Back up. You okay?
The officers asked Evan several times to leave the room, but he essentially ignored the request. They decided that the best course of action was to call in more officers to help control the scene. And Evan. One of the officers was able to escort him down to the ground floor. Everything was under control until the two got into a tug of war over a purse that Evan had taken from the room. The officer came out victorious, and Evan immediately ran away, hopped into a black Nissan, and fled the scene, nearly hitting the officer as well as the ambulance that was just arriving. Police chased him as he flew.
I'm sorry, but that little animation of what happened with him with the cop was really, really funny. Going back and forth, you just see two heads going back and forth on a purse, and then he just hurry up and run, and it looked like he jumped over the doggone car. That's what it looked like. I'm sorry. Let's go on. That just made me a little teary-eyed.
Flew down Lincoln Highway at dangerous speeds with no headlights on. However, considering this reckless driving, along with the rainy weather conditions, all officers were ordered to stop pursuing Evan in the interest of public safety. Back at the scene, the paramedics managed to revive Jamie, and she was quickly loaded into the ambulance. She was taken to the Jefferson Bucks Hospital ICU, where she was put on critical life support. The police processed the motel room, collecting several pieces of identification, bedding that was stained with blood, and 3 cell phones, one of which was shattered. At the hospital, Jamie remained unresponsive and the medical team performed a more thorough examination on her. During this exam, they found somebody's skin and blood underneath her fingernails. Also, in the tissue surrounding her eyes, they noticed petechiae, which are tiny spots of blood under the skin that can be caused by asphyxiation. In other words, it seemed that Jamie was actually suffocated. While medical staff fought to keep her alive, detectives from the police department and the Bucks County District's attorney's office worked to track down Evan. They started by sending police cruisers to the Penwood Crossing Mobile Home Park, where Jamie and the kids lived on Hunter Drive. Evan used to live with Jamie in this trailer, but she kicked him out 6 months earlier and had him stay at the New Falls Motel after he had physically assaulted her. However, she continued to meet with him at the motel, despite everyone around her telling her to stay away from him. Officers arrived at Hunter Drive, and running in the driveway beside Jamie's.
So that makes more sense, right? So obviously she was strangled. She probably had drugs in her system. She probably always was using drugs, but it seemed like she was in an abusive relationship with this guy. She tried to get away. She kept on going back. And usually they lure you back and they unalive you, because it's not about getting you back because they miss you or anything like that. That's not what those type of abusers, why they do it for. It's all about a sense of control, really, and taking something from you, aka your life. That's what it's all about. Poor lady.
Trailer was the same black Nissan that Evan had left the motel in. After a few minutes, Evan jumped back into this vehicle and sped off, the officers trailing behind him. They pulled him over on Tyburn Road, near Route 13. He exited the vehicle with his hands up and walked backwards until he was apprehended, bringing us right back to the body cam footage at the beginning of this video. It was immediately clear that Evan was intoxicated. Conveniently, this gave the police probable cause to arrest him for driving under the influence. But it seemed that Evan was well aware of the actual reason he was pulled over.
Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can will be used against.
I didn't do anything. Is she okay?
Who did that? I don't know. Chill out.
What do you mean you don't know? How do you not know? What do you mean? Yo, listen to me. I need to know if my girl's okay. I need to know she's okay.
As you already know, Evan was transported to the police station following this arrest. After taking the photos of his injuries, the detectives brought him into the interrogation room for questioning.
I was a part of the detective group that went to the hospital, okay, to be with Jamie and to try to figure out what's going on up there, okay?
She did nothing for you, did she?
I'll be honest with you, she's not speaking. And it's not because she's choosing not to, she can't speak.
No, it's not true. Why won't she speak? It's not true.
Evan, I'm trying to figure out how this happened so I can relate to the doctors.
It's not true. Why would she not be able to speak?
Why do you think she couldn't speak?
Is she weak or not? Is she weak? Well, I should be able to speak. That doesn't make sense.
The detectives remind him that the main reason he called 911 in the first place was because she was unresponsive.
Right now, she's unresponsive. I need help.
They then reveal to him that Jamie was actually clinically dead when they first arrived.
When you called 911, she wasn't breathing, right? That's why you called?
Yeah, that's how I felt, you know. I felt like she wasn't breathing. I couldn't say for sure, but I felt like that and I didn't want to risk it, so I hurried up and I called 911.
Okay, I can tell you she wasn't. She didn't have a pulse either.
No.
Evan couldn't seem to grasp just how critical Jamie's condition was, so the detectives stopped trying to explain it to him. They were more concerned about getting a confession. They focused on Evan's injuries, suggesting that he was the one who hospitalized Jamie.
Yeah, it's quite weird about how he's acting now. I don't know if he's trying to act to say that he's, he was under the influence and he can't really answer these questions because he's probably still under the influence now, hence why him, being on drugs or being drunk, right, per se. But everything that he's saying now in the interrogation room, it literally go against how he acted on the phone when he was the one to call 911. and it was assisting. He was saying no, she wasn't breathing. He was saying adamantly she's not breathing. You was instructed on doing CPR to the operator on the phone. So, you know, for him to say, well, if she's awake, I don't know why she ain't talking. Like, what? Dude, what are you talking about? Like how did it went from a dire situation to you don't even think it's a dire situation? That's just weird. But you can see now that they're getting to the harder questions with him. He has his arm closed, which is mean that he's on defense mode, which is mean that he's not going to be forthcoming with some of the questions that they're going to ask him. Definitely not the ones that's going to make him seem like he did something to her. Let's go on.
And you scratched up pretty good there. She wasn't trying to defend herself, or did she walk up?
These aren't even all from. These are like.
I know.
These aren't even all from.
I looked. I had a good look. It's pretty obvious what's old, what's new.
Okay. Whatever.
As the interrogation went on, Evan became more and more dismissive of what the detectives were saying.
Do you consider yourself to have a bit of an anger problem?
No, maybe sometimes. Anyone can. I don't know. I think this is the biggest. I think this is the biggest thing that ever happened in my life. Okay. Excuse me if I have emotions.
You seem extremely short-tempered to me.
Well, you seem.
It seems almost when you don't get your way, you immediately, burst into or have an outburst. And I could almost assume that if you're doing that with me and Detective Pullen here, I can see you would probably regularly do this with Jamie.
Evan downplayed his anger issues, but his cell phone history told another story. While this interview was taking place, a forensic specialist had been analyzing the couple's phones after they were collected from the crime scene. They were able to gain access to their recent phone history, which showed that Evan had bombarded Jamie with calls on several occasions, including just days before the motel incident. These calls made more sense when the police found all of the texts that Jamie and Evan had exchanged, which painted the picture of a roller coaster of a relationship. Sometimes it was clear that Evan was deeply in love with Jamie, and the two got along extremely well. But other times, Evan's rage would take over, and he would fly off the rails, threatening to kill Jamie and her family. The police also found video evidence of this ugly behavior on one of the cell phones. Just 2 days before the incident, while on a call with Evan, Jamie secretly recorded what they were saying with a second phone.
Of course, you're supposed to do that. That's not what I want to do. That's not how I want. That's not how I feel. I'm upset.
It's the choice I have. Either stay with you and worry about getting killed every other day.
No. Had we, no, Jamie, this is deep, okay?
Tell me about it, Evan. I'm the one that's being abused.
No.
This phone call showed that Jamie was heavily considering leaving Evan after putting up with his abuse for years. Instead of apologizing or saying he'll do better, Evan had a meltdown at Jamie for sticking up for herself.
Paul, will you stop saying that, all right?
The fact that Jamie took this video in the first place was a good indication that Evan's anger issues were only getting worse. It seemed that she knew that it was only a matter of time before something bad happened and wanted video proof of this dark side of Evan. But back in the interrogation room, Evan continued to deny that he had anger issues and kept telling the detective.
That's because Evan is a damn idiot. He doesn't even know that he's being he's being, I don't even want to say the word aggressive because that's been overkilled for the past like 20 years now. But he doesn't know that he has an anger issue. He don't think that there's nothing wrong with his anger. And obviously you could tell that this was a toxic, narcissistic, abusive relationship. At one point she was able to get away, but she kept ties with him. And that access, that little bit of access, they try to reel you back into the degeneracy. This is sad. It's really sad. I mean, I know her family members and everybody was telling her not to go back, and that's the bad thing about it when you are someone who's a victim of abuse, especially abuse like this. You have to be willing to let go and let bygones be bygones, and literally get away from this situation. And there's nothing any family member or loved one can do until that person is actually ready. And it's unfortunate that sometimes they don't never make it across the finish line. And sometimes their abusers know that their person, right? Because they study you, right? They know that this person is at the point where they're going to lose 100% contact with them. And that's when they start lashing out in this way with the unaliving. That's when they go to that next level because they know that they're not winning you back. Their bullshit ain't winning you back. None of that is, you're not taking it anymore. You're up on their game. So it always goes to the next extreme after that. And this is why we tried to get people before it even gets to that. You know what I'm saying? And we hope that people come to realization before it even gets to that level because it's all a process. And this doesn't happen overnight, right? This is all conditioning, testing your boundaries, all that. It's a whole process. First, 1 minute is just, oh, this person is just verbally abusing you. And then from verbally abusing you, then here comes the emotional and mental abusing you. And then it's physical, right? It's a process to this type of abuse. It always is. Let's go on.
To ask Jamie if they don't believe him.
Talk to the girl and see what she says, okay? If that's the case.
I don't think you're understanding. We can't talk to her.
But
she cannot talk.
But she will, though.
She has a machine breathing for her. She is unconscious and is on life support from what occurred in that room while you were in there with her.
Nah, you did last time. You're trying to...
Evan, look at me.
What do you mean there's a machine? There's no machine needs to breathe for her. No machine needs to breathe for her.
Evan.
What are you talking about? It doesn't make sense. What could happen to Jamie? What if she's not going to be fine?
She could die.
No, she can't. No, she can't. No, she can't. No, she can't.
As much as Evan refused to accept what the detectives were saying, his demeanor began to change from this point on. It seemed that the harsh reality was finally beginning to set in. Jamie might die, and there was a good chance that he would go to prison for it. Evan seemed to realize that the best course of action in his current situation would be to confess. So he now spun a new story, but this time the evidence worked against him. He now claimed to have been fighting with Jamie before it turned into something more intimate.
Pulling, pushing, and choking each other. And I choked her too much this time. That's what I did. That's what it is. There's no more extra. There's no intent. There's no purpose. I did not purposely hurt Jamie. I love her, okay?
Jamie's injuries corroborated the strangulation aspect of Evan's tale, but the extent of her injuries, along with the defensive wounds all over Evan's body, made it clear that a struggle had definitely taken place. The detectives called his bluff, telling him that they were confident that the attack wasn't an accident. In response, he became defensive all over again, with his
So I can't believe this guy. He just said, "All right, well, I just choked her a little bit too hard that time. That's it." Like, sir, you acting like that's any better? Why the fuck you talking like that's any better? You're just now admitting that yes, you were abusing her and you was choking her out before, and now you're saying, "Oh well, I just made a mistake and it was just a little bit too tight today. That's all. That's nothing. She's gonna be fine." Fucking psycho, yo.
unstable anger problems seeping through.
I don't care what you think. How about that? How about I just give it to you straight? I don't give a what either. What do you think? I care about my girl. I don't care about what you're charged. I don't care what you do. How about that?
Clearly, Evan does care. If he didn't, he wouldn't have spent the rest of his interview trying to convince the detectives that he deeply loves Jamie and would never hurt her. Yet, that's exactly what he does.
Does anybody here tell you how much I love that girl? You go ask 3 different neighborhoods, from Falls to Bristol to Levittown. Go ask anyone that ever met us. Go ask anyone that deals with us.
Shut the hell up. You don't love that woman. You don't love that woman and try to kill that woman in the same breath. Who are you talking to? Who are you fooling? You're only fooling yourself. You only love what you get from that woman. You only love what you can extract from that woman. That's all you love. You don't love the woman. You don't love the person itself. You love what you get from that person. Let's just keep it 100 because you don't hurt loved ones in that way. It doesn't make any sense talking about I care for her now when you almost try to take her fucking life. And if you had such a bad anger issue, then you don't even need to be in a relationship. You don't need to be with nobody. You need to be in a fucking padded room with medicated pills to figure out what the fuck you're going to do with yourself. That's what you need to be doing. But if you was real about what's going on with you, you would inflict the harm that you can't put into words onto others, the said quote unquote loved one that is sitting here on life support. Give me the fucking break. I can't stand when they say that. I love her. I love her. I love her. Ain't nothing you did was love.
I love her. There's nothing here. There's nothing here.
Evan didn't provide any more useful details for the remainder of the interview. However, due to the injuries and his own admission of strangling Jamie, he was charged with aggravated assault. The detectives wrapped things up and escorted him to his cell. Evan's bond was set at $500,000, money that he didn't have. So he sat behind bars at the Bucks County Correctional Facility for 2 years while authorities continued to build their case against him. During this time, they interviewed Jamie and Evan's inner circle and learned more about the relationship between him and his kids. Evan was absent for most of their childhood due to his long list of convictions throughout the years. When he was around, his emotional instability usually caused problems within the family. For starters, every time he came back into Jamie's life, she would become more distant from her friends and family. Also, his constant intoxication amplified his anger problems, which in turn fueled his violent behavior. It seemed that everybody familiar with Jamie and Evan's relationship knew that if she didn't break up with him, something tragic could very well happen. And on July 4th, 2021, that tragic news finally came. 3 days after the incident at the motel, Jamie succumbed to her injuries. Evan's charges were upgraded from aggravated assault to homicide. Perhaps the most revealing piece of evidence against Evan came from Jamie's autopsy. On top of head trauma and a possible brain bleed, there were bruises to her neck and a fracture to her hyoid neck bone, confirming that Evan had strangled her to death with a significant amount of force. According to the forensic pathologist, it was apparent that she had clawed at Evan for approximately 2 minutes, at which point she fell unconscious. Evan then strangled her for anywhere between 2 to 10 minutes until she was dead. For Jamie's funeral, her family started a GoFundMe to help with the associated costs. It raised over $15,000 and to this day actively accepts donations to help secure her son's future. Leading up to Evan's trial, an inmate came forward saying that Evan had told him every last detail of what led up to the murder itself, and the lies that he told the police afterwards. Apparently, Evan had discovered dating apps on Jamie's phone and became upset. He told her that the next time she came to the motel room, he would kill her. Jamie stopped by to bring him food anyway, so Evan strangled her to death. The inmate also said that Evan admitted to fleeing the scene when the police showed up, and had later lied to them when he said he strangled her by accident.
There's no intent. There's no purpose. I did not purposely hurt Jamie. I love her, okay?
With an abundance of evidence and witnesses willing to...
Yeah, so it wasn't even an accident. He was he really wanted to kill her. You know, he really wanted her gone. And then he's like, "Oh God, I have to make it seem like it was an accident." And that's why he called the police. But they said that he strangled her between 2 to 8 minutes. She was already unconscious before he even hit the 2 minutes for the amount of force that he had on her throat. So he made sure that she wasn't gonna get back up. So that whole lie talking about, "Oh yeah, I just did it a little bit too hard this time," and all the stuff like that. Nah, it seemed like you kind of planned it out. So I'm wondering, I mean, I know they put it for a homicide, but to me, I think they should give him first degree murder. He intended to do it. Who's to say that he didn't lure her there? Right? Lure her there talking about, "Listen, I need help," or "Listen, we need to talk about it before the kids," because obviously they've been together for 17 years and he's the father of her children. You know, he could have lured her there, and that was the end game. That was the end game from all along. I think he deserved first degree murder. But let's go on.
To testify. Authorities now had a strong case against Evan. His trial began on September 5th, 2022. Over 3 days, several witnesses, including law enforcement officers, the forensic pathologist, a resident of the motel, and relatives of the victim, including one of her 5 sons.
So here's the thing, vegan. Number one, they have not said that she met this man on a dating app. From the beginning of this video, they didn't say that they met on a dating app. They said that they've been together for 17 years. They have what, 5, 6 children? And 2, do that means that somebody's supposed to lose their life because they're on a dating app? I think you need to check your morale, right? Just saying. Just think about what you just said. That's like equivalent of saying that people who's on dating apps deserve to get swindled, right? Or sticked up, like, because like how men do when men are on dating apps, they get to get stuck up by stick up queens. Do they deserve that too? Choose your words wisely. It's not a good look.
Sons testified. Even Jamie's 15-year-old son, Evan, detailed 2 other domestic assaults, one in January of 2021 that left his mother bruised and battered, and a second on April 28, 2021, where his father set their trailer on fire. The prosecution ended off the trial with a powerful closing statement, saying, "This was personal. Jamie was leaving him after 18 years of torture and violence. The defendant killed Miss Bagley with evil in his heart and mind. If he couldn't have her, then no one else would." Ultimately, Evan Smith was found guilty of third-degree murder, aggravated assault, strangulation, recklessly endangering another person, simple assault, fleeing and eluding, and driving without headlights to avoid detection. Before handing down his sentence, the court heard impact statements from Jamie's family and friends. They all referred to her as a loving mother of 5 who was always there for them when they needed her. Her sister sobbed as she stated, "She was my best friend and biggest supporter." During her brother's statement, he said, "She was like the glue that held our family together. She is not a person that you can replace." Jamie's loved ones also expressed their anger and frustration that Evan showed no emotion during the trial. They called for the judge to sentence him to the maximum sentence, describing him as a manipulative monster who was a threat to society and a danger to his kids. He was later sentenced to 23.5 to 47 years in prison. He was ordered to have no contact with anyone in the family and was sent to the State Correctional Institute in Benner Township. 2 years after Jamie's death, on the morning of July 5th, 2023, Evan was found unresponsive in his cell. He was transported to the Mount Nittany Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at 2:23 a.m. Since Jamie's death, her family has held on to her memory while navigating the highs and lows of life. Her sons, Austin and Javian, graduated high school, and her son Tommy has started a family of his own, visiting his mother's grave with them often. Her son Evan, who was unfortunately diagnosed with leukemia, continues to fight his illness. Thankfully, he has plenty of support from his family, who visit him daily, and set up a GoFundMe to help with any medical bills not covered by insurance.
Oh, that was a so sad situation. Very, very sad situation. Those kids don't have no parents now, right? And that guy was such a punk that he couldn't even do the time for what he did. He had to literally find a way to unalive himself so he didn't have to live his life in prison. And it's just like, you didn't think about your kids when you took their mom away from them, right? You didn't think about your kids, right? In fact, from what they said, you was in and out of your kid's life anyway. So yeah, why would you be thinking about your kids, right? I'll just say that case is really sad. Parents to those kids, I'm glad that some of them are still living their life, being successful, having children of their own, and hopefully, this dark part of their family history doesn't bring a dark cloud over the family, and that they don't pick up the bad habits. But yeah, it's just really sad. It's really sad, and we do wish that anybody who's being abused, and this is not only just women, this is men too, that they get out, they get help, and that they don't go back to their abusers. But we do know that a lot of them go back to their abusers if they don't have the proper support, and they don't also get the proper therapy as into why they are drawn and attracted to individuals that harm them, right? You have to get that type of therapy, and you have to have that type of support to help you figure those things out for yourself. Sad. Well, guys, that's all I have for you today. I said I was luckily I was able to do the second case for you. I hope you enjoyed the case about Christopher Paracco and knowing the current event with that. And I hope you enjoyed this last case. Please just make sure that you're hitting the like button for me while you're heading out. I truly, truly appreciate it. I will be coming back on Saturday, so look out for the notification. I'll probably be able to do 3 cases that day. And I just want to give you a heads up that next week I will not be available at all. That is my birthday. birthday week. So your girl's about to show up and shout out 41 gang, 41 gangs. 40s is the golden years. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward to it, but I'll be back. I'll probably chime in or write something on a post. But yeah, don't look for me next week. Next week is all about me. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, I hope everyone enjoyed. I hope everybody have a safe and blessed day, blessed evening, and continue having a good week. All right. And I will talk to y'all soon. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. Thank you for the financial support from T. Thomas today. Truly, truly appreciate you. You don't know. Thank you so much, guys. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.